Hi there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host Simon Conboy. This episode is another game preview, and today we will be focusing on the Atlanta Falcons visiting the Detroit Lions in a battle of 2-0 teams. Feels like it's going to be a big test for the Lions. Stated this in the weekly roundtable. I feel like this is a game where they need to prove themselves to be a legitimate contender in the NFC, having beaten up on two pretty soft teams at this point in the season. If you're the Falcons, I just think you want to see that last week's game, they played very well last week against the Packers, but the amount of injuries that the Packers had took a bit of the sheen off of that performance. I want to see if they can replicate that level against a team that's played pretty well thus far and show some of that explosiveness that they had last season, which we started to see hints of last weekend. So as always, I'm going to go through what I think are some of the key matchups, how I think both teams are going to attack this game, and how I think things will generally go. And I'm going to start with the matchup between the Detroit defense and the Atlanta offense. So the Atlanta offense, a little bit disappointing week one. Last week looked a bit more like what we expected. Detroit has played very well thus far defensively, which is a big surprise, but you've got to bear in mind their competition, the Cardinals and Giants, both looking utterly broken offensively thus far this year. So this week, they get a legitimate test. We'll learn so much more about the Detroit Lions defensively than we know now. Jared Davis has been impressive. He's going to be heavily tested. This Falcons team's got the personnel to execute a lot of different types of plays. They can really dictate tempo. They can run the ball. They've got the speed to run it outside with Coleman. Freeman can run those stretch plays. He can run up the middle. And then they've got an array of wide receivers with varying skill sets, and Julio Jones is just a monster. So it'll be interesting to see how they look to do this. For me, the key player in this game for the Lions, well, there's two key defensive players. Their big names have to play big. This group's played okay, but they're just not talented overall to go man for man with this Falcons team. So the guys that are capable of doing that are going to have to do it. Slay is going to have to do a job on Julio. He's going to have to keep him somewhat quiet. He's going to have to contain him. When I say contain, look at the kind of performance we saw last week from Xavier Rhodes on Antonio Brown. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for. He's going to have his catches, Julio. He's going to get some plays, but don't let him beat you on the big ones. Limit his yards after the catch. Don't let him beat you and dictate what you're doing defensively. That's what they need to see from him. Slay's good enough to limit him. He's a very talented player. He's going to have to be at his best. And Ziggy Ansah, this offensive line's not playing on the level it was last year so far. Ansah had a real big game against Eric Flowers, which may not mean too much at this point, but he looks significantly more disruptive than he did last year. He's got that burst back. That burst is where his power comes from primarily. So I want to see him moved around. I want to see him from both ends. Ryan Schrader looks like an issue at right tackle. Jake Matthews, I think you can beat with speed. I want to see Ansah moving around, making this team really focus on where he is to give other guys opportunities, because the rest of this defensive front is not particularly talented from a pass rush perspective, in my opinion, with Kerry Hyder currently missing. Going to be a big test for the rookie. This team loves to get linebackers in coverage on their guys. Austin Hooper. You'll see those running backs coming out of the backfield. They're going to be a big test in coverage for him and the rest of this linebacking crew. I feel it's a real mismatch, and that's where I worry most about Detroit. The linebacking group, fairly inexperienced as a group together, and some overall inexperience in terms of Davis as a rookie. And I think these guys offer some real problems, and I can see the Falcons having a lot of success. And when they're at their best is when these running backs are dominating in the passing game, because it really does set up the other guys. Got to be able to stop Taylor Gabriel taking the top off the defence. Don't know if they've got the speed in the back end to cope too well with that, and also with Julio at the same time, whilst dealing with the threat underneath of Mo Sanu and these running backs. I mean, it's tough. This is a damn difficult team to defend. So the Falcons, expect to see them I don't think this is a team that's going to vary its plan of attack too often in too many games. They're good at what they do. They want to establish Devonta Freeman, mix in a bit of Tevin Coleman, throw those guys out on a few plays just to set up the downfield stuff. You've got Mohamed Sanu for the possession stuff, and they'll take their deep shots. Very, very difficult to defend. Julio can do a bit of everything, and Matt Ryan is a very good decision maker when you don't get too much pressure on him. So if you're the Lions, I think you've got to play pretty soft on this team. You've got to try and keep everything in front of you, try and limit this Falcons team, and that front four is going to have to be able to get pressure. Those linebackers are going to have to play very, very disciplined. The Falcons are going to try and use the play action game. They might try a few bootlegs, a few draw plays. They're going to have to be on point and not get misdirected and make sure they're reading their keys correctly, I think, to have success. If they're out of position, then I think the Falcons will be able to pick them apart, and that's going to be potentially really ugly. Just not a huge amount of talent there. They've got to be able to stop the run without bringing a safety up. It's going to have to be a real great effort from that front seven, I think, if you're Detroit. But you've got to stick to basic zone principles. I don't think they can hold up in man too well outside of Darius Slay against these guys. So that's what they're going to have to do. And I just see the Falcons putting up a lot of points on these guys. They looked dynamic again last week. They're playing in a dome again, which always helps. And the one thing the Lions need is a couple of turnovers. I don't think their offense is explosive as Atlanta's. They're going to need to get a few big plays in there. They're going to have to get pressure on Ryan. If he's able to survey, I think he picks apart this secondary. I'm not sure they're good enough to keep up with these guys. So, yeah, big advantage for the Falcons here in this one. I think it's going to be a real test, and looking forward to seeing how the Lions look to combat it. Moving on to the other side of the ball. Hard to decide at this point what I think of this Lions offense. I think Stafford started the season well. Last year was by far his most promising season. Decision making really improved, and we've seen that early this year. He could have been a disaster against the Giants, but his decision making was pretty spot on throughout that game. Didn't throw for many yards, but I thought he played well. Scrambled when he needed to. Pocket movement was good. Didn't look to force anything, and those are not things we've been able to say about Stafford in the past. This is going to be a game where I don't think he can. This team has to be efficient with the football. They're going to have to make all their drives count. They're going to have to try and keep this Falcons team off the field. We saw some promising signs from the run game last week, and I'm not sure this Falcons team is going to be the best against the run. They're not the biggest team in the world. They're very fast, but I think if you can get a really good power running game going, I think they've got some weaknesses there that you can exploit. Deion Jones, not a huge guy. Grady Jarrett's a good player. Poe's not the most disciplined tackle in the world. Adrian Claiborne's mediocre. There's opportunities there. Not sure that Abdullah's the running back to do that, but he was impressive last week. I think if these guards can get a lot of push, run behind Ricky Wagner on that right-hand side, then we could see some good situations for Stafford. I think the Falcons, we're going to see a lot of blitzing. I think they're going to look to make up for Vic Beasley being missing. I think they're going to take their chances. I think with the offense that they have, I think you can take the approach that you don't necessarily mind giving up some big plays for the opportunity to get those takeaways, because at the end of the day, your offense is going to score, and you don't want this team keeping them off the field for too long. You don't want this defense getting tired. When you see the teams that are sort of predicated on speed defensively getting tired, that's when you see some ugly defense in this league. Without Vic Beasley, I fancy this offensive line's chances. Greg Robinson's an issue. I suspect we'll see some Brooks Reed and Tack McKinley on him. Going to be good to see the rookie, see what he's got. He's a real X factor. I think if he can get going, then this Falcons defense becomes very, very scary. Brooks Reed is just a guy, he's fine, better against the run than as a rusher. The inside backers, they're tough to run on in terms of the sideline to sideline speed. If you can get going downhill against them, I think you can have some success. So I think for the Falcons defensively, the Lions are going to try and slow this game down. They did that against the Giants last week. So Abdullah's going to be a real key point, I think, for both teams. I think they need to look to get him involved a bit more in the passing game. I know Riddick's their kind of designated pass player, but I think if they can get both of those guys involved, you start to pose some of those same questions that the Falcons do, where you never know what either guy's in that offense for. And Abdullah's got the potential to be a real dangerous runner after the catch. I mean, any running back should, but in particular that style of shifty back can be really explosive with the ball in his hands. Those are the guys you want to get in open space, and the Falcons are going to want to clog those lanes up the middle. I think you're going to see a lot of those linemen just lined up directly over interior guys, trying to force the Lions' run game to be lateral, where the speed of those linebackers can get to them. That's where you got to see movement in the ground game from these guards. TJ Lang's got to have a good game. I think Ricky Wagner's going to be a big player for them. He's got to lead by example on that right-hand side. Because Greg Robinson's going to give up his pressures. At the end of the day, he's Greg Robinson. He's played a lot better than anyone would have expected, but he's still Greg Robinson. So I think Wagner's going to have a big day, because if you've got players coming off of both edges, they're going to be in big trouble. Not expecting too much interior push. I like the interior of this Lions line. Stafford's is very good against the interior pressure as well, good at escaping, as long as this team's able to give him a lane to do so. In terms of what I'm expecting to see in the passing game, that's difficult to say. Stafford kind of blew up in one quarter. Other than that, it's been very stifled thus far. The Falcons secondary, Desmond Trufant's back. Expect to see him on Marvin Jones. I fancy Trufant to win that matchup more often than not. So I think Golden Tate, he's going to have to get some big plays underneath. Maybe hit a double move at some point in the game for something down the field. Golladay's going to have a big day. Eric Ebron, that's the X factor for me. If they can pull away one of those linebackers to have to play coverage on him, that will really help in the run game. And that's something they're going to need. They're not going to be able to go toe for toe with this Falcons team. They're going to need to be able to slow this game down and get some chances, whether it's through turnovers or a couple of explosive plays on their own, like the plays they had to take out the Cardinals in week 1. I think Golladay's got the potential to be that guy. Going that over the middle of the field, Keanu Neal's a good player, but I think you can get him on the play action because he's a pretty aggressive safety. And Golladay just presents a matchup problem in the slot, running those seam routes, especially with nickel corners tending to be those smaller guys for the most part. So I think that's going to be integral. But the run game's going to have to get going because this team's going to need play action, I think, to be able to win this game. You're going to see a lot of defending, I think, off the ball. We're going to see a fair bit of blitzing. The Falcons are happy to play man-to-man coverage on guys. So it's an opportunity for Tate. I think that's where he can be really effective, is on those underneath routes. He's very good after the catch. I think the Falcons have to pay particular attention to him. I don't think we see too much of Jones. I think that Stafford will respect Trufant. So Ebron and Tate, they're the two guys to keep an eye on. If Golladay gets enough snaps, expect to see him targeted deep down the field, and he's going to have to reel a couple of those in. But I've got no doubt the Falcons will be somewhat aware of what the Lions are looking to do with him. But that may create opportunities for other guys underneath. But at the end of the day, the Falcons' defence, if they can get the kind of pressure they got last week, Stafford's still going to make his mistakes. And if he's not kept clean, if he's not kept clean, I can't see the Lions keeping up with this Falcons offense. I think the Falcons offense gets a lot of points in this game. I think the Lions put up a big effort. I think they'll get a turnover in this game. I think they'll keep it close, but they'll just end up coming up short. Just too much firepower from this offense. And Lions defense, come out and prove me wrong. I would love to see it because I love seeing the Falcons lose. It's good for my boys, but hard to pick against them at this point. But fascinating matchup for me. Absolutely fascinating. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on this one. Let me know, what do you guys think? Is there any particular matchup you think is going to be big in this one? Do you see a way the Lions can win this game? What do you think of their defence? Do you think it's good at this point? What do you think of Stafford's performance thus far? I've seen a real mixed bag. I've seen some people really bagging on him and are pretty dubious about that. If you look at the box score, it looks bad. If you watch the game, pretty good. But yeah, let us know. What do you guys think? We've got the comment section below, the Cover Zero Facebook page. You can follow me on Twitter at Simon Conboy. As always, if you've enjoyed this, check out some of the other stuff. Got plenty of other game previews, game reviews up on the site. Each Wednesday now we're doing a live stream of the Cover Zero Roundtable, which is our podcast style magazine type show, reviewing every game, previewing all the upcoming games each week. They've been really enjoyable to do. I think they're probably really enjoyable to watch on that basis. So hope you check those out. They're live 8 o'clock ish, there or thereabouts, UK time. So that'd be 3 o'clock Eastern and midday Western, but straight up on YouTube after they've aired. So check them out. I think you'll enjoy those. And as always, if you could like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon, that would be thoroughly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate everyone that does. Have a blast doing this. So, yeah, hope you guys get something out of it too. And, yeah, as ever, thank you again. Have a great evening and go Bucks.